Ali here, and welcome back to Discovering Oddworld Soulstorm Outbound. Now I will continue discovering Sorrow Valley. So let's get started. Starting off, I want to see where the railway we see at the very beginning is leading to. And I don't have to take the camera that far to see the beginning of it, which is not that far away from the beginning of the level. I also took a closer look at Abe himself and realized that he got stuck from his animation when he was trying to pull the lever that hard to move on. I also wanted to see how it would look like when I just take the camera out and see how it looks like when Abe was looking at a binocular. And this is what it looks like. This is something the player themselves doesn't get enough time to see by themselves. And as you can see, Abe is standing frozen solid when he's looking at the binocular. And neither does he even move it around when you're moving as well. But while I was in this position, I also wanted to take a better look at the entire level. This is where I realized that, just like with Funicular, there's not a lot of interesting stuff to look at in Sorrow Valley Out of Bounds, aside from a few interesting stuff. But what I mostly noticed about this level is that this whole level is all about going from one side of the mountain to the other side and then repeat. While I was taking a look around the area, I also wanted to take a look what was going on at the end of the very level. That's where I discovered at the very end the blimp is actually waiting for Abe, which was kind of funny. I'm not sure exactly what this blimp is exactly for, like where exactly is it gonna move on after Abe reaches a certain part, but we'll get a little bit more to this later on. After fumbling around enough around the whole area, and the next thing I wanted to take a look at was this cutscene here. This is here where I noticed something very interesting. The note Abe is reading does actually say something, but it's turned upside down. So I had to look at it from the other side where it is mirrored correctly. And there is actually written something on it. It's kind of hard to read what it says, especially in the top one. But the middle one and the bottom is readable. Like what I can read so far is that the top one says Abe the Savior, and then something about him being the reason that he burned down the farm. And then afterward it says, I don't know, but something like, you must take this tape north and show them. You must see, they must all see, Abe, we need you. And I was quite surprised at the fact that it legitimately had something on the text to say, despite the fact that this is something the player themselves would never be able to see, especially by the fact that you see this from the other side, like the perspective that Abe is seeing. And not only that, it doesn't even say the exact same thing that Mudakin is narrating. But if any of you are able to read the rest of what it says, please tell me. I would like to know this. Regardless, here's some better footage of the note so that you can see it all by yourself. After that, I wanted to see where those two flying sleeks that comes from upward. It turns out that I was not fast enough to be able to see this. As soon as Abe goes upward and hits the checkpoint, the two flying sleeks spawns, so I was not really able to activate the camera and see it all by myself. I know I've covered this up in the previous one, but I wanted to see where those caves are from. And naturally, it was all taking place inside a big black box. It was also here I noticed that each of the caves are nicely stacked, one next to each other, and I also realized that they all come from the bottom. While I did this, I accidentally discovered that there's yet another blimp waiting for Abe as well, which I assume is the one that is firing missiles at Abe when he reaches a certain part. While I reach this part, I want to take the camera on the other side of that sign and notice that it also had another kind of sign seen on the other side, something the player themselves would never be able to see, just like in Funicular. But when I took a look at this sign at the end of the level, there's nothing. Like, it was just a one-sided sign, apparently. When I reached the level all by myself, I wanted to see how it actually looked like when Abe is running down there. We can see that the flying sleek that is following him isn't actually following him, but instead is bypassing him normally and doesn't really care about him at all. Next is Fast Station. This is here where there's quite a few interesting stuff to cover up. First thing is, I wanted to see where that train we see at the very beginning is going. I also want to take a better look at it, and yeah, it's pretty normal. But after that, I wanted to see where the railway ends, and I just followed it. And once I reached the end of it, and I thought that was just it, that's when I noticed that the top railway keeps going, and it just goes kind of further until I reach that part of it, and that's it. Like, I'm not even sure how much of the railway the player themselves would be able to see, but it's kind of crazy like how long that railway is. But anyway, I wanted to see where the train is going, and it actually stops right here at the station until Abe is showing up at the door and you press continue. The train disappears completely. After that, I decided to discover the other side of the railway, and apparently it's not that long as the other side, as it already ended here. I mean, kind of understandable, since the other side is the one you can see the furthest. After that, I also want to take a better look at the whole level, and I discovered that it's quite larger than expected. Even though there are like lots of holes that obviously the player themselves can't really see, but still looks impressive out of bounds. When reaching this checkpoint, there's yet another train that is passing by and is parking at the station. Unfortunately, I was not fast enough to see where the train comes from, but I assume it was just spawning out of nowhere, and then you just see it slowly stopping here. That's where I want to take a closer look at it, and I noticed that it's literally the exact same one from the hijacks level. You can literally see the same platform, except some platforms are missing. Like mostly the first part of it has all the platform, then the other part of it doesn't have any platforms at all. But when looking around the station itself, there's nothing a lot interesting to see here, with few exceptions. I naturally wanted to see what's on the other side of the sign, and it's just the same, just mirrored. But here's another interesting thing I discovered. These yellow pipes seem to have a logo on it, which I'm sure the player themselves will be able to see it, but not that clearly. So here's a footage of it where the logo can be seen very clearly. I also fumbled around and looked at the other signs, and it's pretty much the same. It's still the same sign, but just mirrored, except for this one that has nothing on the other side. But that's because this is an electronic sign, so I guess that makes sense. But of course, one of the biggest things that I was curious about to discover in Fat Station is where does these silos inside of it taking place? Taking the camera out, we can see that it kind of functions the same way as in the cave, but not exactly. If I take the camera further, we can see that the whole area is covered with some flat plains. And taking the camera to the right, we can see the next silo right next to it, as it seems like they all take place close to each other. Taking the camera to the left, that's where I discovered the rest of the silos. But of course I want to see where all of this is taking place exactly, because if I turn the camera behind, I can see the sky, and if I take the camera even further back, I can see that all of this is covered with yet another light green plains all around it. And that's where I figured out that all of this is taking part at the bottom of the whole level. And of course, when I took the camera out, I discovered the entire level from the outside without the cliff. So here's how the entire Fat Station level looks like, without the cliffs and only the platforms. While I was here, I was also curious to see how it looked like when Abe enters a locker room. This was a little bit difficult for me to get a good footage of it due to how cramped of it looks on the inside, but I managed to get a good look of it, how it looks like. When seeing it from this perspective here, we can actually see Abe hiding inside of it, like this. I also want to take a look at how the dumpsters look on the inside, and there's literally nothing. But when Abe searches around the dumpsters and the trash that flies around, I want also to take a better look at those trash and notice that it's literally the same kind of trash that I saw when I was taking a better look at those urns from the ruins level. Here's another thing that I was also very curious to know about. How does it look like when Abe is trying to grab onto the train at the very end of the level? Turns out that it's not the same Abe, as this one that we are seeing is running just gets stuck, and then we see another Abe that is holding onto the train. I had to make sure that I was actually seeing right and it was not me that was messing things up. So I literally restarted the level just to make sure that I was seeing right, and also hoping to get some better footage of it. But unfortunately, I did not, cause somehow I seem to have messed it up, as when I did this again, the train did not even move at all, and then we see Abe is stopping and then doing his sneaking animation. So I guess I couldn't get a better footage than that. Last level I want to cover up for this part is the hijack level. This is here where there's also some few stuff to talk about. When taking the camera a bit further back, we can see that it's not actually the train itself that is moving, but rather the whole ground that is moving, to give the illusion as if it was the train itself. Because when I think about it, how come the camera that I'm freely move around, moving along with the train? And if I take the camera back, we can see that the ground is disappearing, which is something I also covered up in my useless fact about Oddworld, the first one, and pointed out that this is something the players themselves are able to see. Doing that, I also saw that train that you sometimes see passing by is just standing there, and figuring out that the train was not actually moving at all, but it's just standing there. But because there is this illusion that as if everything is driving, it kind of looks like the train itself is passing by, but it's not, it's just standing still. Then I wanted to see if I could just go further all by myself, and I could see that the ground seems to spawn the more the train is approaching. The same goes with the railway as well. After that, I wanted to take a better look at the background. As I did that, I discovered that the clouds are basically just flat plain textures. But as I was discovering the background even further, I discovered this strange pink flat plane that was running in the background, and it seems like it is following along with the train's movement. I don't really know what the purpose of this pink cube is, but it is there somehow. Here's also how the whole thing is looking like, taking the camera further back. After that, I wanted to take a better look at the inside of the train. This is where I discovered that some of the Mudokons are just chilling, and then there's others who are just sitting like this, and some of the others are just like standing up and looking down, kinda look like depressed. I'm not really sure, like, are you even able to see this by yourself, or it's just me being a fool, or whatever, but really, like, when I was just moving around, I just now discovered, like, this. Because normally you always see the Mudokon is just working, like scrubbing the floor, or like pulling like one of these rings. But I just never discovered that they do this in the hijack level. Then I also want to take a better look at the Sleek Mama before you reach it. This is here where I noticed that the Sleek that is working on it was not even there at all. Wonder where you came. He's probably inside of it, I think. When I reach the part there by myself, the first thing I want to see is where those banners that is flying away showing the Sleek Mama is ending up. And it turns out that they're just clipping down at the floor, and then they disappear for a while. And also, I didn't even knew where the snake came from at all, because apparently I was not fast enough to see this, but maybe I can't even get a chance to see this at all. When reaching this part here where you save the Mudokons through a bird portal, and they end up in this part here, that's where I want to take a better look at it on the inside. On the inside there's literally just boxes and that's it. But that's where I also notice something interesting in the wall, as we can see some kind of a binary code. I tried to decode the binary code by myself, but didn't get me any results. So I'm not really sure if this even means anything at all. But aside from that, this is where I reached the end of the level, and it's also here where I will wrap up for today. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye!